Hi, my name is Nicole, and welcome to my channel, What's Good on TV. Today, we are going to be talking about Life After Lockup, Season 5, Episode 41, Welcome Home. I have been watching this series for a while. It's kind of like one of my little guilty pleasures, but I do believe that, you know what, we all need something that we can tee-hee and laugh about, kind of de-stress. And so I decided I want to review this show because I want to get in on some of the conversations. So, when the show opens up, we meet again Daniel and Bianca. Now, we actually met Daniel and Bianca on Love during Lockup, and I'm not sure how they made it over to this show because they wasn't interesting on the last show. But Daniel and Bianca, you know, they're meeting up after he has just gotten out of prison. They are a very boring couple. She's very young. She's like 23 and he's like 28. And they're finally getting a chance to be alone after getting out and being with family and everything. And she takes him over to see the Airbnb that they're going to be staying at. It is a very dark and dank kind of Airbnb. The vibe is kind of, you know, almost a little like depressing, but he's kind of like, wow, yeah. And he's tiptoeing around and they start, you know, canoodling, and they cut to them in confessional, and they talk very, or she does anyway, talks very childlike about sex and kind of what they're hoping for. And there's a lot of giggles and just so boring. I don't know. So then we see them, you know, in the bed and they're kissing, and they gotta have it at least once every season. The get out of our room, we need some privacy. So they start kissing, and then he jumps up out the bed. Y'all gotta go. Again, we have to have one of these scenes every single season. And it is kind of funny. It's kind of like a staple of it. So anyway, the next couple we see again is Troy and Zariah. Now, we met them too in the last season of Love During Lockup. And so we see them getting ready for their first day at work in their new business, which they have started together. Or really, she kind of started it and kind of built it for him to come into and have a thing to do. But first, let me say, when they show them in the confessional, they both look amazing. They look so good. They look happy. You know, her skin looks good. I'm not going to go in about Zariah's skin because when I was younger, I had 3 different types of acne, according to the dermatologist, and I know how painful it can be. So I just want to say her skin looks good. Her hair looks good. They look happy. So they're talking about their first day. You know, I know it's probably summer production too, but, you know, most of the time when we see them, it's like this much of Zariah being happy and this much of her fussing and carrying on. So we see them getting ready for work, and she's fussing because her bras have been put away, and he's kind of, you know, kind of throwing shade a little bit about, well, we don't have enough space, which is, you know, really about the sister. But they're getting ready for their first day of work, which also includes him rolling a joint for them to use later when they get home, which I was like, okay, then. The other thing that we see is that the sister is back, and the sister does a little confessional out on the porch, which gives it gives a kind of a gossipy vibe, like she's going to give us the real lowdown. And what she does tell us is that she gets a little anxious when she hears them fussing and carrying on. And at first I think that she is saying, you know, about scared for her sister, but no, it's not her sister she's worried about. She's like, Troy is not used to her ways, and so she feels bad for Troy. She describes the scene of, you know, Zariah going off and Troy sitting and looking like a puppy dog at the table. And so we realize, like, oh, okay, we see what's happening. They also give us some flashbacks of the mother. And when they give us the flashback of the mama, I realize I'm gonna miss Mama. Mama in the last episode, it was Troy's mother. And she had a way of coming and stealing the spotlight and stirring up stuff and then sitting down and watching it happen. And so they kind of show Mama in some of the flashbacks. And I'm like, maybe we'll get some of Mama this season, because Mama, she brought something good to the show. She really did. So anyway, we see them finally get to their offices, and the offices are lovely. It is beautiful. They are so happy. They are so excited. They're going to meet with their new staff. And they have, first off, their business is a nonprofit, and they're going to be providing free therapeutic services to people who are at risk youth, and people who are just recently released from prison. And Zerai kind of explains that this kind of came to her after he described what kind of support he needed after his release from prison. And so I was like, okay, that's good. That seems like a good idea, good business, a good nonprofit, good service, I should say. So we meet the director, her clinical director, and her therapist, and they are meeting Troy for the first time. And the clinical director says, may I ask, why were you in prison? And Troy and it's not funny, but it kind of tickled me a little bit, because Troy runs down his charges, his convictions, like he's running down his resume. He's like, well, first degree this. I can't even remember what it was, but it wasn't just like, oh, I committed some crimes. It was a robbery. He was like, first degree robbery, third degree such and such, da 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 da. And she's like, oh, okay, yeah. And so she ends up, introducing them. She says, I'm going to show him the place. And we are left with the clinical director and the therapist sitting at the table. And they are having a whole conversation with their eyes. They're kind of looking at each other like, girl. I mean, it cracked me up, because they were like, we just don't know how this is going to go. The therapist says, well, I'm just not sure. And, but yeah, they were probably feeling kind of shook, like, oh Lord, these people can't be responsible for my paycheck. So Troy, he tours the offices, it's nice, it's impressive. They have their staff meeting with their people. And Zerai gives this very, very overarching, broad description to Troy about his job. He's like, your job as community director of community engagement is to engage the community. And he's like, yeah, right, I got ideas for that. I know what I'm gonna do for that. I'm like, say more, girl, say more. Community engagement can look like a lot of things. What is his job? Is it connecting with the other nonprofits, the other provider of services in the area? Is it connecting with what is he exactly going to be doing in this 8 to 5 space? But she just gives this very overarching, you got it? And he's like, yeah, I got it. And the therapist and the clinical director are like, oh, yeah, this might be a problem. So then, that segment ends with Zerai telling us that she has a secret that she hasn't told Troy. We're like, okay, all right, we'll see what it is. Then we get to see Rob and Tenny, and he has been out for 6 weeks. And first, let me say, when we first see them, the son is doing a video of them moving into their new home. And so he's running around with the camera and he's interviewing. This little boy is all the cuteness in the world. He is so great. Somebody get this little boy a show already, because he is TV ready. But this couple, they look great in confessional too. Her makeup is always fabulous. Her face is beat to perfection. And so we see them moving into their brand new home, and he is already installing cameras in the home. And that is not funny, but for some reason, it did tickle me a little bit. Tickle me, and then it made me go side-eye a little bit. So he is installing cameras. She says, but now they're for security. He does not say that. He's just like, because to me, he used those cameras to not just be in communication with her in prison, but to control her in prison. And she kind of describes how, if he couldn't find her, he'd jump on the camera, make the alarms go off. And so it feels like a familiar way of controlling what goes on in the house. It's an all-seeing eye. But, some people, if they like it. They also talk about this tattoo. It turns out that he has tattoos, and one of his tattoos is of an X that is right here on his arm. And she says that she does not like that. I would not care for that either. If my husband had a tattoo of his ex on his arm, I would need that covered up. But was it just me, or did that tattoo kind of look like her? I was like, honey, just tattoo your name underneath it, because it kind of looked like her a little bit. Everybody got a type sometimes. So, but anyway, it became like maybe an issue down the road. We see that they are planning a welcome home / freedom party for him, which sounds like a great idea. Except for the fact that, also I want to say, I love the idea of having it on a rooftop, which I would have had that thing in the backyard because it costs money to rent spaces. But they had it on a rooftop, and the whole family was wearing like denim and white. I thought that they just looked fabulous. They looked beautiful. But they are having this welcome home party and people are not showing up. And, my heart kind of sank for them a little bit, especially when he said it reminds him of when he was in prison and no one showed up for him. And he was in prison for 17 years. And apparently his family visited him just a handful of times. And so, I don't know, my heart kind of went out for him because, here he is free and he's hoping to reconnect with people. And he's like, this is just like prison. But he also has this attitude of, but I appreciate the people that are here. Glad that like these are the people who showed up for me and they're here. So they're waiting to see who else is calling, who else is going to come. But she's calling people and they're like, oh yeah, I don't feel good. Oh yeah, I'm busy. Yeah, I felt for him. So then we get a little bit more of Justine and Michael, right? And we see them going to the doctor with little Manhattan, who is 6 months old. So cute. The cutest little, just cutest little baby ever. And they have all moved out to Las Vegas and they have all of their children with them. And they show pictures of the house. House is gorgeous. They are living their best life. They looked so happy in their confessional. I mean, just, face hurting from grinning so hard. Just happy, happy, happy. And so we see them going to the medical office because she is pregnant. I'm not real clear on how far along she is. I know she's got to be past 12 weeks, maybe even closer to 20 if she's having a sonogram. But she's super happy. They're laughing about, being excited for this baby and finding out the sex. Now, I will say this about when they were with the doctor. I feel like when they were with the doctor, I'm wondering if this is a reenactment because this doctor was not giving real vibes. So she is smiling so hard when she's getting the sonogram done. And the doctor comes in, stays with the person who does the sonogram, and is telling them all the reasons why they should be alarmed. Like the doctor actually starts saying, well, we're excited, but you should be worried. And the doctor goes into detail about you could, lose your life. You could have your uterus. You could bleed out. The doctor just went into a lot of detail. And I'm like, this is giving reenactment. What doctor talks like that? Because the doctor said you are fine. Doctors talk to you about what your actual health issue is. Right now, those are things not issues. I don't know. It just made me wonder, like, is this a real doctor? Because I've had 3 pregnancies and 2 of them were high risk. And my doctor never laid out in detail, like, the things that could actually go wrong. And actually, maybe it's a state-by-state thing. But some of the things she was saying you need to go to a lawyer for. You don't need a lawyer for in my state. You don't need a lawyer to have a healthcare power of attorney or to lay out what your end of life wishes are. Matter of fact, I feel like that was in some of my paperwork. What did I prefer when I went into the hospital? So I don't know. And if this is a real doctor, girl, get another one. Get another one. Get one that is, get another one. Because her bedside manner, And again, the person who did her sonogram stayed in the room. Normally, at least maybe here where I'm in the part of the world I'm in, when the person who does they do the sonogram and they're out because they got to go to somebody else. The doctor reads it. The doctor doesn't stay with them and she doesn't hang in the back kind of looking over the shoulder. I don't know. I was just wondering, like, is this some sort of reenactment? But okay, it gets us to an important conversation that we see them have a little bit later. Next, we are with Key-Rock and Bree. And again, they look gorgeous too. Love the red hair on Bree. They are happy and engaged and moving to Texas. And they're bringing the mama and the brother with them. Everybody getting a whole new life. Gonna start Havoc in business. Gonna go to nail school. All the wonderful things. So they're packing up and getting ready to go. And they go get the oil change. While they're getting the oil change, Key-Rock gets a phone call from not his parole officer, but somebody in the parole officer's office, and tells him, I'm so sorry to have to tell you this. Could have been production, who knows. I'm so sorry to tell you this, but you don't have permission from Texas. You got our permission. We want you to go. Get on out. Leave Virginia quick, fast, in a hurry. But Texas has not granted you permission to move into their state. So you can't go just yet. Key Rock loses it. He's pantsing around. He's yelling at the person. The person tells him the gospel truth. The gospel said, because Key Rock was saying things like, I've already quit my job. I've already packed up my house. I made deposits. I don't have anywhere to go. And the person on the phone says, well, you should not have done all of that before you actually got permission from the state of Texas to move there. And that's the gospel truth. That is the gospel truth. And Key Rock's response to that is, but why would I get permission if I've done all the things I'm supposed to do? And I can understand that reasoning, but you also understand that you're a part of a system, and systems have clogs and rules and things to hold you back. So you should have got everything lined up. Your permission to leave the state, your permission to go to a new state before you went and made all these changes. So he's really upset. Bree tries to, jump in and get on the phone. And, a little side note, what was Bree in her pajamas? And look, I know we do that now. We go out in our pajamas. It still takes a little bit for me to get used to that. But she gets on the phone. She's more level-headed. She explains better their situation. The person on the phone says, after hearing that they may have nowhere to go, be homeless, we're going to get you some government housing. I said, that's nice. I didn't know they could, do that for them. But anyway, they have a situation going on, and they may have to go stay in this government housing. Next, we kind of shift back over to Kim and Joey. This is another couple that we saw in love during Lockup. I could have did without. I don't know. They okay. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know. And some of their story is not ringing true to me. But anyway, we see that she is with, I can't remember if it was his mama or her mama, but they're getting ready for a yard sale because she has all of this stuff, and she is trying to get monies together so that she can get a home for her children. And that's the part that kind of spoke to my heart, because I'm a mama too, and I understand the importance of wanting a place for your kids. She said, I am wanting to buy a house for my babies, right? So I totally understand that. So yes, get all the things going. Her plan, she said, is to work hard and to sell things. Now, I did wonder, like her, how much money are you gonna make selling helmets and stuff for $2 and $3? You got to have a, better plan. And the third thing on her plan to get the money was for him to get a job. I don't know why he don't have one. Something. Is he Uber and DoorDash? And he needs to be doing something. He's doing stuff for the kids, but not full time. But she is talking about getting this money together so that she can have a place for her kids. And while there, she decides to open up her app and to see where he is on the phone. And the thing that was surprising to me is the mama was not surprised at all. She was, oh, you track him? That's not an everyday thing, is it? I mean, she's like, oh, you track him? She says, I do, because he's an addict, and I need to know where he's at. And she's like, well, is he what he said he was going to be? She's like, yes. And I'm like, okay, let's not make this an everyday thing, okay? Let's not make this an okay thing to do, to track somebody, and they don't know it. Anyway, we also see Joey, and he is, dropping the kids off. And as he's driving, and I don't know how I feel about this as a storyline. Apparently, part of their storyline is going to be the paternity of the oldest son. So as he's driving the son to school, he's saying things to him like, you got brown hair like mine. You think my hair going to look like yours when it grow out? Or you think you look like me? And I don't know. He's 5 years old. Oh, 5 years old is old enough to be aware but not understand. I don't know about, I just don't know how I feel about that. The other question I had was, it appears that Joey is dropping off the youngest one at a daycare, at an in-home daycare. And I'm thinking, is that right? Like, is he using why do you need in-home daycare if you don't have a job, sir? No, and if you are using home daycare, it should be because you are spending so much time looking for a job and door dashing and Ubering and maybe Amazon flexing and, maybe finding construction sites to see if you can do some day work. It should be because you own a hustle. What are you doing between 8 and 5? Anyway, they in love and it is working out for them. We then switch back over to Justine and Michael, and they're still with the doctor when we see them again. And she, asked the doctor for some instructions about her care, which is fine and reasonable, except for the fact, ma'am, this is like your 5th pregnancy, and the last one was high risk. You know what to do. You know what to do. And the doctor is like, listen to your body. It's okay to let things go. And I'm thinking, ma'am, you have a whole husband and you also have older children. And I know sometimes, people don't like to ask children to do things, but that's how it is in the family. We do things sometimes to take care of each other. So those older kids, they can help clean up. They can hold the baby while you take a nap. They can, contribute to a family. This is what it is to be a part of a family, is that we don't just get taken care of, but we help take care of each other. I'm not saying turn them into indentured servants, but y'all can get to helping. Yes. But I'm like, Justine, we know you know how to do this, girl. We know you know how to do this now. Come on. That we also see them have a discussion about vasectomies. And I got to thinking, I think there needs to be more understanding and education for men around vasectomies about what happened, because the doctor suggested they consider getting her tubes tied or thinking about other efforts. She said removed. I said, dang, she said, not time, remove them, burn them, take them off. But Michael was like, he said some things about vasectomies like, well, I don't want to tamper with it. I want to make sure it still works the way it should. Vasectomies don't change how that works. It doesn't, and it's fairly quick. My husband had one, and he volunteered to have one because he wanted to make sure we didn't have any more kids. But he went and had one done, and I think there's some misconceptions about them. And so I'm like, get a little clarity around it, sir. It may be exactly what you want. So they also end up having a conversation about if she was not to be here. Okay. And my heart kind of went out to them because that's a hard conversation to think about. Okay, if things go really wrong, she let her wishes be known that he choose the baby. And that's a hard place to be in because, I get wanting, okay, I have a new life and I want this baby to have a chance at their life. She's also 36 and have 9 other kids, really, that you also want to be present for. So it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing. And so your heart has to kind of go out for them being in the position of having to consider these options. But prayerfully and hopefully everything goes perfect. Back to Broccoli. Oh, that could be their name. Kirok and Brittany. Broccoli. Yeah, okay. So they end up kind of talking a little bit more about having to go into this halfway house and their kind of hopes and disappointments a little bit around that. We see him kind of calm down. We switch back over to Bianca and Daniel. And I'm going to give production some gold stars for producing the way they produced this because it was a tee-hee for me. So you end up with them in confessional talking about the sex. And he's describing it like he think he did the thing. He's like, I just, melted into her. And she's kind of like, it was all right. He just got out of prison. What terrible. Girl, he is thinking, he think he did it because he put the question to her like, well, how was it? He think, oh, he did the thing. Bless his heart. He said, don't ask questions like that. No, when you may not be ready for the answer. But the way production produced it with him, with the romanticizing and I did it, and her being like, it wasn't terrible. I chuckled. he talked about getting a job because she is talking constantly about the money that she has spent to be with him. And he actually put, I made a note of, he said, hopefully I get a job. No, sir. You can't say, hopefully I get a job. I'm going to get a job. When I get a job, I will have a job. And I would need him to say that every time, not hopefully. That's not the right word answer. Absolutely not. So we see them having breakfast. And Daniel is making breakfast, which is always a very, very sexy thing to do for a man to make a meal, breakfast for you. Anyway, but he makes her a nice breakfast and they're eating it. She says, oh, is there coffee? And she can see the coffee. And he says, yeah, sure, go help yourself. She wants him to get the coffee. We're not sure why. It looked almost a little bit like I want you to jump to when I say or something. I don't know. But yeah, it was like, well, you get me a coffee. And he was like, it's right there. And I do believe she was closer to the coffee than he was. And so they get into this little back and forth where she is basically saying, you know, I've done this and that for you, and you can't even get me a cup of coffee, put a little milk in it. And he did a very nice job of explaining to her why we're not gonna do this no more. It was really, you know, chef's kiss the way he explained it to her. He broke it down. He was like, why did you know, she's talking about all this stuff she did for him. And he says, well, why did you do those things? And she said, because I love you. And he said, well, then why would you use those things to hurt me and manipulate me? And I don't want it. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. I love you and I owe you, but I don't want to be treated. I was like, you better, Daniel. That's how you lay down a boundary. That is how you lay down a boundary. But she is so childlike that she's like, why are you so triggered? I was like, ma'am, just say I'm sorry. I understand. The only thing I didn't kind of like about it, because it felt a little mansplaining to me. I felt a little smidge of, but at the same time, she's so childlike. It's almost like he has to talk to her like that. But it was a good job. Good job on explaining to somebody why you have an issue with what they did, and then explaining to them why you don't want it no more. So it really couldn't leave you with anything but acting like a child or owning up like a real woman and saying, I see why that was offensive, and I will, you know, refrain from doing that and hurting your feelings. Anyway, good job on that for Troy. I was like, that was spot on. So now we're back at Zariah and Troy. And we see Troy and Zariah in bed, and they are looking at different things for their wedding. Fairy tale lights. Oh, that's beautiful, he says. Looking at different pictures and whatnot. And y'all, it's not funny, but why she looked like a Sesame Street character. She had on her blue face mask and these black, what do you call the strips you put on your eyes to pull down puffiness? She has on a headscarf. She looked every bit like a Sesame Street character sitting there. And she had the eyelashes on. I was like, so after they kind of finished talking about, you know, the wedding, and why they should have one, she says, oh, there's something I have to tell you. So she shows him his text, and the text is basically saying you behind on your rent. Turns out they are behind on their rent for their office spaces, and they need about $7,000 to catch up because they have not been paying on their rent. And also they have gotten some sort of grant money, and they've only had enough money to pay their staff. And that means they won't have any money to pay their rent. And he is understandably upset. Like, yeah, why haven't she told him this? And I got a little confused about this part in the storyline because I was under the impression he's only been out of prison for about 2 months. And in this 2 months time, she has done a lot of work because, I mean, maybe it's different in different parts of the world, but in my part of the world, if you were to open up a nonprofit you got to apply for a 501c3. You should. You don't necessarily have to, but it's a lot of paperwork that goes into that. You have to get together a board. In my part of the world, grants aren't easy to come by because foundations and people who, companies who give out grants, they like to give out grants to people who have a proven track record. Like you've already been operating this nonprofit and can demonstrate like you are going to be operating it for a while. Even if you are a startup, they want you to be able to show that you have the experience to do what you say you're going to do and the track record to show that you can follow through with things. So I'm like, wow, y'all did a whole lot. But if it's only been 2 months and you 2 months behind, when exactly? But anyway, neither here nor there. They're in a situation where she needs $7,000 to get caught up and he is upset. What are we going to do? They get into an argument. Troy is trying to leave to go for a walk. I would have let that man go for that walk because some people, when they get upset, they do need to move. They need to move. Walking helps you kind of process things, think things. We saw in the last season when he got upset that he went for a 6-mile walk. He went for a long walk. So sometimes people need to move to think. And so if he's upset, let this man go, because he's like, the first thing he did was let me get these shoes on. He's going to go for a walk. He's going to go and try to figure it out. The thing that was concerning is the way he was talking was almost like he's going to go have to do something illegal to get this money. And so I'm, trusting and believing he ain't going to do that because this show will end up quicker. But it does sound like he's saying things like, I got to go figure this out. I got to go, get back out in these streets. And I'm thinking, it sounds like Troy might have need those services that you're trying to offer to the community. Who's providing him the services that he said he was going to need upon his release from prison and that you open up this nonprofit? It sounds like he needs to call in his supports because this is overwhelming. It is a lot to say, I got to come up with $7,000. And he's new to the outside. So they need to, maybe get cooler heads and figure it out. But it does leave you wondering if he is going to do something illegal and hoping that he won't. So we're back with Kim and Joey, right? And they are in bed wanting to swab the baby for one of those at-home send-off to a lab paternity test. And again, I don't know about this as a storyline. I just don't. It's a possibility he could be the father because they were having sex around the same time, because she found out something like her husband was cheating on her. So she got her get back by sleeping with Joy a bunch of times. Then Joy goes to prison. She's back with her husband. She said, this is your baby. And you know what? In North Carolina, as she was legally married to him, it is his baby. In North Carolina, there's a such thing as a legal father. And if you are married to someone, regardless of who that person is impregnated by, you're the legal daddy. So yes, he is the daddy. But Joey wants to know if he is the biological father, and he wants to swab the baby's mouth. So they tell the baby, we doing a COVID test. That's not funny. But they tell the baby, we're doing a COVID test. And they should have swabbed the other one to make it look right. But they swab his mouth, they send it off, and they talk about how it's only fair to Joey to know if he's the father. And then Joey said something, everybody deserves to know the truth. And you know what? I do agree with that. Everybody deserves to know the truth. I used to work with parents who were preparing for adoption, and we would talk about, one of the things we would talk about is helping children grow up in the knowledge of knowing that they're adopted, because people have a right to know who they are. They have a right to know that about themselves. And so when he said that everybody deserves to know the truth, I was like, I agree with that, but I don't know if they need it on national television, televised for the whole world to see it happening. But TV, right? We are now going back to Tenny and Rob at this party where everybody has let this man down. So Tenny's mom does come through and she's happy to see, and she's like, where's all the people? And I'm like, Mama, don't do it. Don't do that. And she's talking to our daughter, and she's like, I can see that he is missing his mother, because apparently in the 6 months they've been out, they've only been with her a handful of times. I think 2, they said, all together. His mother does come through. And when I tell you, this man's face brightened up like it was like when a 6-year-old gets picked up from first grade by their mama. Like, he was so happy to see his mama, and he hugs her all tight, and the mama hugs Tenny. And I could have sworn they said, I love yous. I could have sworn they said, I love you, I love you. And then he hugged his mama again. He was so happy to see his mama. And mama sat down and got right into the mess. I hope that was editing. I hope they had a chicken wing, had a couple sips of something. Because it was like mama came in, and the way it looks on the show, it's like they hugged, they sat down, and mama got right into it. I'm glad to see you, but we got stuff to talk about. And mama goes into how abandoned she feels by him, the nerve, and how he's taking on this other family to take. I don't understand mama. The man is married. What are you talking about? You taking on, you've deserted us. He's supposed to hang on to his family and care for his family. Sometimes people, and I'm not saying this about this mama, but there are some people who feel like their adult children are like their investment. So you're my adult child and you should take care of me. You are my retirement plan, my investment option. So I've put into you and you're supposed to put into me, right? Mama is very much laying on this guilt and saying, you're not there for us. And I'm thinking, I don't understand what you want from this grown man who has his own family he's supposed to be seeing to. So mama makes a comment that triggers Tenny. She says, because when she says something like, well, when she's not here, I'll be here, which does imply I don't expect y'all to make it. Not funny, but it does imply she don't expect them to make it. And so Tenny is like, well, why would you say that? Next thing you know, girl, they are arguing. Tenny jumps up. Well, I'm gonna go. And they said, bye. Mama's like, bye. Tenny swings around, gets in her face, and is like, what is your problem with me? What is your problem with me? Next thing you know, they going at it. And they are going at it. They are hands-on. He is having a jump in between them. He ends up falling over on the mom. It was mama too old to be fighting. I'm probably about mama's age, and I would be all bruised up and hurt. No, you can't do it. And the kids are watching. The kids are saying things like, oh no, she hit my mama. That is, no, absolutely not. But that is where we kind of end for this episode. It was a good episode. I enjoyed it. I hope that you have enjoyed my review. Please hit the like button, subscribe, comment below. Comment below if what are your thoughts about Tenny's mama and having this expectation of being taken care of by her grown son? And, what are your thoughts about the paternity line that the other couple is kind of using, going through, and Key Rock planning his whole life before getting permission to go. He forgot he was in the system. That's what he forgot. But anyway, like it, share it, subscribe, comment, and I will see you soon.